So have you ever noticed this kind of strange paradox at work? You meet someone with a top-tier degree, off-the-charts test scores, just a truly brilliant mind, yet they somehow completely flounder when it comes to actual professional success. I mean, why does raw intellect and a prestigious academic background so often fail to translate into a fulfilling career? Well, today we're diving into some source material that offers a really fascinating perspective, one that fundamentally flips how we think about what it takes to thrive at work.
Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're exploring what we're going to call the inside-out success model. The core premise here is that your internal mindset, your deeply held psychological and spiritual attitudes, is the ultimate driver of your career. It's not just about technical skill, and it's definitely not just about being quote-unquote book smart. According to this framework, true, lasting professional fulfillment is dictated by what goes on inside your head and your heart.
Our insights today come directly from this text, Work Methods to Overcome the Recession. Specifically, we're unpacking the psychologically driven work methodologies outlined in Chapter 3, which the author actually refers to as the scientific work method of happiness. It really explores how intertwining career success with personal happiness requires a highly specific mental methodology.
So here is our mental roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to break down 5 philosophical pillars. First, the law of success and happiness. Second, moving from jealousy to blessing. Third, blooming in your own nature. Fourth, the aesthetic of not blaming the past. And finally, the pitfalls of the exam smart.
All right, let's jump straight into Pillar 1, the law of success and happiness.
So the author argues for this highly specific type of workplace law of attraction. It dictates that a bright, positive, and constructive outlook isn't just about, being that cheerful, pleasant person everyone likes to share a cubicle with. It's actually a strategic necessity. According to the text, the thoughts you vividly paint in your mind will physically draw similar outcomes towards you. If you're constantly looking at the dark, pessimistic side of things, you literally suppress your own potential and attract failure and isolation. The big takeaway? Holding a constructive view of life is the absolute seed of professional success.
Moving right along to Pillar 2, shifting from jealousy to blessing. This is a crucial mindset shift.
The text draws a really stark contrast between two very different reactions to other people's success. When you feel jealousy, when you secretly hope someone fails or you just refuse to acknowledge their strengths, the text argues that you are fundamentally shrinking your own capacity. You become petty and, ironically, you stunt your own growth. On the flip side, the act of blessing someone, actively praising them and sincerely acknowledging their good qualities, that actually expands your own potential. Affirming successful people around you creates a mental environment where you can grow too. Basically, acknowledging others' strengths is exactly how you mature into a leader.
Okay, pillar number 3, blooming in your own nature or discovering your true calling.
The text relies on this incredibly specific visual metaphor here. A morning glory seed cannot bloom into a sunflower. It sounds so simple, right? But think about how many people spend their entire careers wishing they were a sunflower, looking at the actual sunflowers in the office with that exact jealousy we were just talking about. The text emphasizes how critical it is to objectively look at your own nature and figure out exactly what kind of flower you are uniquely meant to be, rather than agonizing over why you aren't someone else.
So, the crucial point isn't just identifying your innate talents, but dedicating lifelong, focused effort to polishing those specific talents. The source material warns against just looking at the surface-level results of others and trying to swap your life for theirs. You don't see the massive, hidden accumulation of effort beneath their surface. Instead of envying them, you really have to strive fiercely to bloom as brightly as you possibly can, exactly where you are, using the precise tools you were given.
Which brings us to Pillar 4. The aesthetic of not blaming the past.
The author outlines a strict, totally non-negotiable rule here. You must never badmouth your previous company, your former boss, or your old colleagues. The text observes this massive trend in our highly fluid modern society where people constantly switch jobs and then immediately start complaining that their past environment was terrible or their former colleagues were holding them back.
But the author frames refraining from these complaints as a fundamental ethic, or an aesthetic, of a true working professional. Complaining about past jobs demonstrates a really dangerous lack of personal accountability, because if you constantly blame the environment, you aren't taking ownership of your own path. A true professional accepts that they chose to be there, they take the lessons learned, and they move forward in silence regarding the negatives. Holding your tongue is a real mark of wisdom and maturity.
And finally, Pillar 5, the pitfalls of the exam smart and why book smarts often fail.
Let's bring all these concepts together to totally deconstruct our initial question. Why do people who are only book smart often fail in the real world? Well, here we see the core paradox identified by the author. You have individuals who are absolutely brilliant at passing exams. They've got the pedigree, they memorize the textbooks, yet frequently, these high academic achievers completely lack the crucial internal mindsets we've just been discussing. The skills that make someone good at solitary studying often fail to develop the emotional and spiritual intelligence you actually need to navigate a complex workplace.
The author actually pinpoints 3 specific flaws in the failing exam-smart worker. First, a total lack of consideration. They simply don't notice the needs of those around them. Second, dull intuition. They might know the textbook answer, for sure, but they misread the room or the actual context entirely. And third, a lack of imagination. They just can't visualize scenarios beyond what is explicitly written down in a manual. These traits are the exact opposite of the constructive, empathetic, and expansive mindset required for true success.
So how do we fix this? The text proposes some highly rational solutions to overcome these exact flaws. First, you've got to carve out solitary time specifically for self-reflection, to check your ego and truly understand your own nature. Second, you have to deliberately shift your focus outward and actively observe your colleagues in your environment to build up that missing consideration and intuition. And third, you must continuously train your imagination by thinking deeply about things before they happen, anticipating needs rather than just reacting to them.
The big overarching message from this source material really emphasizes absolute ownership. The text argues that whether you're dealing with a tough boss or a past failure, you have to take 100% responsibility for your own career and mindset to truly bloom. So, based on this framework, I want to leave you with this question. What is one lingering complaint or piece of jealousy that you can let go of today to test this model for yourself? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.